Hi guys, it's me Courtney and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be putting two foundations against each other. I was going to do two separate videos with these, however, I just felt like because they were both matte and they were so similar that I would go ahead and put them head to head. I'm going to give you my thoughts, some information on both of the foundations, so if you are interested in that, then please continue to watch. Alright, so starting with the Nars Soft Matte Complete Foundation, this foundation is $40. You get 1.5 ounces. It does come in 34 shades. I got my regular shade in Nars, which is Cadiz or Cadiz. As far as I know, the new matte foundation has the same foundation shade range as the Nars Radiant foundation. For the Nars side, I'm gonna go in with the No Problem Primer. And this has been the best primer that works with this Nars foundation for my dry skin. I do find that the Nars foundation can be a little bit drying to the point that it can sort of suck out the pores, so this is like a nice balance in between the foundation and my skin. While it's sort of settling in, I'm gonna read off a few of the claims for the Nars Complete Foundation. Alright, so it says it is a full coverage, transfer proof, oxidation resistant foundation that lasts up to 16 hours with a natural looking matte finish. For the record, this foundation is vegan and gluten free as well, if that is something that's important to you. And as you can see, the consistency is like super runny, but once you start putting it on the face, it is a little bit more like serum-y feeling, a little bit thicker. The one thing is I do see a little bit of my moles going on here. I could cover up a little bit more if I felt like it, but I do feel like this is a good enough base for me. The other thing about this foundation that I noticed, this Cadiz color is a little bit different than the Nars Radiant foundation. I feel like my Nars Radiant foundation is just slightly more warm, a little bit more peachy, so it's not as bright. I think Caracas would be the perfect shade, which is the next shade up. Alright, so now we're going to go into the other side. I'm going to take my Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer for the Born This Way matte from TooFaced. The TooFaced Born This Way foundation is $40 as well for 1 ounce, which is 0.5 ounces less than you get with the Nars Complete Foundation. It does come in 35 shades, which does match the original Born This Way foundation shade range. However, when I got the original Born This Way foundation, I got the shade Butter Pecan. This was at a time that I was super tan, so this one already is a little bit deeper. The Butter Pecan shade in the matte foundation was even darker than this one, so I just went up a shade down a shade to the color Brûlée. As far as what the claims are for the matte foundation, it says it's a life-proof foundation that controls oils and keeps you looking flawless for a full 24 hours. This foundation is actually medium coverage. It's about the same like liquidiness, if that makes sense. And again, it does spread really nicely and it becomes like that serum-y texture. And off top, you can see we have two different colors. This is the TooFaced foundation, and this is the Nars foundation. Now that both foundations have had a second to sort of settle into the skin a little bit, the one thing that I noticed off top is that the Born This Way matte foundation does give your skin a little bit more of a glow, while this side, it still has that natural glow. I do feel like that's more like skincare and stuff coming through. This side is just definitely more shiny. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of my face and try to make it look like it's not completely opposite. The Nars foundation does do a really good job of like a dry down, if that makes sense. However, it still does feel like slightly tacky to the touch. And then on the TooFaced Born This Way side, this foundation, no matter what primer I use it with, it still ends up a little bit tacky. So I'm gonna go in with the Makeup Forever Matte Velvet Skin. This is like a foundation. I'm just gonna use a light dusting. Alright guys, so this is the look that we are going to be rocking today. For some reason, I decided to use a lighter weight concealer. I use the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk concealer, which is by no means full coverage, and both of these foundations have way more coverage, so I'm not sure why I chose that. However, ignoring the under eye, I could have did better there. Everything else looks really smooth, very skin-like, very weightless, very comfortable on both sides. This is the TooFaced side. It's a lot warmer. It has that golden tone in it, so it matches my skin so much better. whereas the Nars foundation is a little bit more pale and it does look flashbacky on camera and all that stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys a finished look with the Nars foundation. Again, it's with the No Problem primer as well. It does sit really, really beautifully. It performs the best with that primer. In the video, you can definitely see that it's a little bit more full coverage, and I get minimal creasing. I still crease like ever so slightly, but I do get minimal creasing with it. It can be drying at times, so if I were to have like an eczema breakout or something up here like I do sometimes, I definitely would not reach for this to cover it, just because it does cling especially if I don't use the right primer, you know what I mean? I think everything blends on top of it beautifully, so smoothly and softly, you know what I mean? Like, it's a really, really nice initial look. As for the Born This Way matte foundation on this side, I find that any primer looks really amazing. It goes on almost dewy looking. It's still a little bit tacky even after a few minutes. It doesn't necessarily have the same dry down, I feel like, as the Nars foundation does. This is a foundation that you can go without setting. I feel like both of these foundations you can go without setting. Today, because it was tacky and I feel like I do have some errands to run and I'm gonna be wearing a mask, I wanted to go ahead and set it, and because I set this side, I went ahead and set this side as well, just so it'll have that balance, if that makes sense. To me, it rings a little bit more full coverage than just medium, which is what it's supposed to be. Both of these are foundations. I feel like you can use either a brush or a beauty blender or sponge or whatever with either one and you'll get a really good application. I do feel like, for me, I do like a little bit more of a sheer out. I feel like sometimes with the brush it does tend to feel a little bit cakey on both sides, if that makes sense, but like I said, you will get a lot more coverage with the brush with both foundations. Off top, initial application, I prefer the TooFaced Born This Way matte. It's like better than Skin Like. It's still Skin Like, but just a hair better. It is now 11:25. I actually finished my makeup about 11 o'clock and I've been talking for a minute. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Bye. All right guys, so it is 5:33. I wanted to do a quick little check-in so you guys can see where we're at. I did go out a little bit earlier. I had my mask on and I wanted to show you guys what it looks like after that, which we're still looking pretty good. I do have a slight amount of creasing right here and on really both sides, but it doesn't look like the worst. And I am slightly oily around the nose and around here on both sides. So I actually have a workout that I'm going to be doing later, so I'm going to see what it looks like after that, just to see what it looks like through sweat and heat and all of that stuff. But yeah, this is what it's looking at about the 6-hour mark. Alright guys, I am back and this is what my face is looking like. Now 9:49. So in total we've had this foundation on for 10 hours going into the 11-hour mark, and as you can see, my face doesn't look too bad. Aside from the fact that like my concealer completely gave up on me, I don't see a difference on either side at this point. And honestly, for me to have like sweated out my makeup, this still does not look bad. I feel like if you're one of those people that like to go to the gym and like wear a full face, I feel like both of these foundations you can definitely get away with it. I do have oils on both sides of my nose still, and I do feel like close up, just mainly around this area right here, it is breaking apart. Now I am going to show you the Nars foundation at the end of the day. It does get oily, as you can see, however it is super comfortable still. Like, it's not too heavy on the skin, like it doesn't feel like you're wearing a whole layer. I do get a little bit of creasing. It's still very, very minimal. It doesn't get worse than that. And one thing about this foundation, I do feel like this is one that is pretty layerable. You could go in with one layer, let it kind of dry down a little bit, and then go in with a second layer if you want to really, really pack on the coverage. But as you guys saw, it is a pretty decently full coverage foundation, and like today, you can sheer it down slightly if you want. You just have to use a little bit less, if that makes sense. Now I did try this using powder to sort of re-mattify, and that's exactly what happens. Like, it will re-mattify the face, and it actually ends up looking exactly like it did at the beginning of the day. For the TooFaced foundation. It's pretty much the same thing. It is gonna get oily. I don't feel like it looks as lit from within as it did at the beginning of the day, if that makes sense. But it looks okay. Like, I wouldn't be like ashamed to go out of my house looking like that. And again, after powder, it does remattify and it still looks super naturally matte, if that makes sense. It's not like necessarily good as new, but it is wearable. As far as putting these two foundations head to head, I do feel like you do get really great benefits with both. I don't feel like either one just is going to last on your skin without a touch-up. This one's gonna be a little bit more, you want that full complete beat. This one looks a little bit more natural to me. The TooFaced foundation is less drying for sure. So if you're somebody like me, I would actually go with this one. If you're somebody that has an oily skin type, I would go for this one, if that makes sense. Which honestly, if you have an oily skin type, you can probably go for both. All right guys, that about does it for me. If you are curious about any of the looks in this video, I will list all the products in the description box below. Hopefully this video was helpful. If so, please give me a thumbs up. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if it is in your heart to do so. And I will see you guys in the next one.